Good morning. Or actually, it's noontime here. End of February. And my message is pretty simple. America is falling apart. Yep, the country that we love is falling apart. Now, the most obvious thing is our finances suck. We're 35 trillion or something in debt. And our president is promising to give tax relief to the rich. Relief's probably a bad word because tax cut to people that are not paying much taxes in the first place. That will increase our debt by trillions of dollars. We're already at our second largest expenditure is interest. The largest one is Medicare, Medicaid, those Social Security, those kind of payments. Well, those are going to be cut thanks to the Republicans. And the taxes that the rich are going to pay is going to decrease, making our budget deficit go crazy, raising the amount of interest, probably pushing the amount of interest we pay past all other expenditures of our government. And yet, there's no outcry. The Republicans are happy with sending us to financial ruin. We've been just pretending, make believe that the debt doesn't matter. But that's just garbage. And there's no one brave enough to stand up to say that instead of cutting the taxes the rich pay, we should be increasing it. No, we're going to decrease Medicaid. Something like 20% of our people depend on Medicaid, Medicare. And that's all the medical attention they get. We don't care about them because besides being financially bankrupt, to me, we seem to be morally bankrupt. Gaza is the most glaring example. We take the side of the rich and powerful Israelis. They're both, don't get me wrong, they're both immoral, Hamas and Israel. Israel has killed tens of thousands of kids and babies and grown people. Hamas killed a bunch of people and are generally unsavory characters. But it's not about picking a side. It's about trying to get both sides to do what's right. The U.S. doesn't much care about the moral aspect of all of it anyway. Then we got DOGE running around like an idiot, closing things down, take like U.S. aid, and there's a court order saying to reestablish the payments out of U.S. aid. Whether Trump will follow them or not remains to be seen. That's coming up tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Republicans are going ahead with providing the tax cut and putting America further into red. And DOGE runs around pretending like what they're doing makes a difference. It doesn't. If they cut like half the workforce, they're getting 1% or 2% off of the national expenses. and lowering a deficit that's, 100% of our gross domestic product, and they're going to cut that down by 1%. Who the hell cares? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just show and tell bullshit. So, are the Democrats like picking up the slack? No, Democrats have one job. They've had it for like 8 years, and it's to say how bad Trump is. Okay, I agree with you. Trump's bad, but you got a plan? You going to do anything to lower the wealth inequality by helping the people at the bottom or expecting more taxes on the top? No. You're too cowardly to speak up and say what you're trying to do because you don't really have a plan. Republicans have a plan. They're going to bow and worship to Trump. That overall leaves our country in a coward's predicament. Cowards on the left, cowards on the right. Nobody has a plan is willing to step up and say, here the hell it is. As our country goes over the economic cliff and moral cliff at the same time, we have cowards all around us. Nobody willing to stand up. Trump trying to shut down media, silence media, keeping at the press conferences, he's only allowing the people that will ask him softball questions, and if you ask him too hard a question, you're going to not be invited to the next press meeting. MSNBC getting rid of the black lady that was pleasant enough. I didn't listen to her much. I shouldn't even have to say not because he's black. I think what MSNBC, I kind of know their position on everything. Their positions is kind of like the Democrats, anti-Trump. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything that Trump did is good. And he actually admits a lot of bad shit. He actually does some good stuff every once in a while. And MSNBC or the Democrats could have a policy of saying, positive reinforcement when Trump does something good, but nope. When he does do something good, they just kind of don't say anything at best. Or they find some aspect of it that he did wrong, which is, I think that's bullshit too. Kind of a cowardly, falling apart at the seams type position. When you're not brave enough or courageous enough to admit when someone you dislike does something good, that doesn't say much about you either. Trump trying to secure minerals out of Ukraine is not a crazy idea. We keep saying we want to go green, but you need a supply chain to go green. Copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, tungsten, gallium, germanium. Yeah, that's my field. Metals. You need all those metals to go green. You need a lot of them, especially a lot of copper. Out in Tucson, there's a mine been waiting 22 years for a permit. We're not serious. We're morally bankrupt. Engineering and pretty much life is about compromises, trade-offs. And yet we're bogged down in red tape. So one thing I would like to see is reduction of red tape, bureaucracy decrease. And from that point of view, what Elon's doing is kind of mildly encouraging, except for the fact to make it permanent, you have to deal with the budget. And I seriously doubt that the budget process is going to go well. It's only being done by the Republicans, so it won't be long term. It'll probably be to the midterms. And by then, Trump will have pissed off enough people that the Democrats will make some gains and Republicans won't have the majority anymore. So they may not have enough, but they won't have the presidency. So the Democrats won't be able to roll things back until they get a president in power. But it's all just temporary because they're not working together and doing their job. They're not looking for trade-offs and compromise together. It's part of our moral bankruptcy. It's part of the reason why we're economically bankrupt. The rich people run the country, and the rich people give themselves tax breaks, subsidies. There's all sorts of subsidies that we could eliminate, like to the oil industry, and even to the farmers. Sorry about that, farmers. But just subsidies in general could be huge savings of the U.S. government. Nobody's doing that, though, because congressmen have their favorite subsidies, and they cut their subsidy, then they're not going to vote for the reduction in federal spending. So all this DOGE crap just avoids the issue. You have to attack the budget and discuss priorities in this country. Of course, we're not ever going to consider things like, term limits or ranked voting or anything that might improve our country long term. Congressmen don't have time. They're too busy raising money from the rich people so they can get reelected. Notice in all of this that the American public is not included. Ministers see how Trump goes forward on his tariffs, especially to Mexico and Canada. You want to see a cost of living increase and increase in inflation. That's the way to do it. It's not complicated, it's simple. Canada is considering trying to get a pipeline out over near Vancouver so they can ship oil and products to China instead of America. I'll put some oil refineries in the Midwest out of business. But Canada should do that. If you had a partner like America and a president like Trump kind of destroying your standard of living just on a illogical whim, just to produce chaos. Yep, they should have that option there. They should take care of themselves. Meanwhile, China's fallen apart. Their property bubble has kind of underscored the main problem with their economy. And this is a little bit off the beaten path, but their economy doesn't really have a mechanism to stop producing something. You know how in America, if a plant can't make a profit, they can stick around and borrow money for a while, but they got to start turning a profit or they go out of business. Tesla has to make a profit. They have to have cash coming in from car sales or they have to shut down. There's like 100 companies in uh, China right now making EVs. Um, how the hell you get 100 companies starting up with EVs? That's a stupid system. Get a dozen maybe, that makes sense. But they have zillions of electric car companies, and they have electric cars parked in the fields and electric bikes. They got them coming out their ears. Their model produces overproduction as a standard operating procedure, which crashes the price of whatever it is. Um, and you can only do that long haul is by running up debt, which is exactly what China's done. And coupled that with their population collapsing, which means that the future of the real estate business is crap. No matter what the government does to try to fix it, it's basically not fixable. If your long term demand is going steadily down on anything, the price is going to go down and it's not going to be a good business. People keep asking why the government doesn't step in, and actually they are trying to step in China on the property stuff, but it's fundamentally bad business to be in something that the demand is falling and you've already got an excess supply. It's just, you're just kind of screwed. The China people are screwed. Meanwhile, Russia's going down the tube. Ukraine is learning to hit them, their oil refineries and weapon depots, and they send drones into Moscow now and Petersburg and all over the country. Not all over it, but the western half of Russia is pretty much subject to attack by Ukraine, which Russia's been doing for a long time. And then our moronic president gives away all the bargaining chips with Russia before the negotiations and he's even start, and he doesn't include Ukraine. What kind of bullshit's that? It's just stupid. There's no other term for that. It's just stupid. There is no master plan. Everybody keeps wondering what Trump's master plan is. He doesn't have a master plan. He shoots from the hip. There's a definition of stupid that you don't think about the consequences of your action and you don't have a plan for the next step. That's Trump. Anything he does right, it's kind of random potluck. The idea of making government efficient, it's a good idea. Execution, zero. We probably need to computerize most of the government. We're still using COBOL, COBOL language. I'm an old dude, and I never actually learned that language because it was old when I was in my prime trying to learn programming language. Learn BASIC and Fortran and a few other languages I can kind of stumble through. Computer languages. COBOL? Nah. Too old, and yet our system runs on it. And to try to shut that down and switch over, now Elon did that. That would be impressive as hell. Get our federal government, especially the IRS, onto a more sound programming language. That would be impressive. That would be efficient. Sending people home, cutting them off the payroll with a COBOL system still in the background running. That's going to go well. That is going to go well. If you're going to cut a bunch of people, you have to put a system in place that takes less people to operate. Efficiency 101. Anyway, this is enough rambling from my side of the table. America kind of looks to me like it's falling apart. We're not dealing with our budget problems. We have no moral principles that I can see that we operate on anymore. And we got people at the top shooting their mouth off, making changes without thinking about them, without having a plan. And on top of that, we're trying to offend our longest allies, Canada, Mexico, Europe, NATO. And we're buddying up to the scum of the world, Putin. That is moral decadence. Don't stand by your friends and hug your enemies. That's a plan. Anyway, the ancient Texan thinks all of that sucks. The ancient Texan thinks that America is falling apart without a clear idea of its values or its morals. DEI, getting rid of that? Yeah, I think we talked about it too much. But it's just a smokescreen for incompetence. That's all it is for Trump. Like he's doing something constructive. Well, that has very little to do with anything. That's the effect that has on the federal budget, or what happens in Gaza, or what happens in Ukraine. It has zero effect. It's just a stupid smoke screen. And if you can't see through the smoke and see what's going on behind the smoke, well, you're part of the Americans that's kind of lost their way. This is the ancient Texan. Namaste.